Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning back in. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Layla, the Lenormand reader, and today we are doing another deck review, and I have today the very popular and very well regarded the Rana George Lenormand deck. So I've actually got it open and I've got three parts of the deck laid out here in front of me, and we've got the beautiful guidebook that comes as a book proper with a nice cover and a lot of information in here, and a hard kind of box, a hard carton box with the magnet that helps close the box, and so it piles up in two and the guidebook comes on top of it to close it. So the Rana George deck is a very popular deck, and she's a very popular reader. She has quite a bit of resources that I'm going to link in the description box. And I also have an entire blog post about her deck and her work, which you also want to check out. So be sure to check out these links. So let's have a look a little bit at her deck here. She also has an important book that is also a very well regarded standard reference in Lenormand, which I'm also going to link. I don't have the book as a physical copy. I have it as an e-copy. And so when we get to some of the information, I have it on hand on my phone, and I'm also going to pop up some images of the ebook as we need. So this is the lovely box, and this is the lovely guidebook that we're going to get to in a bit. Let's have a look at her deck. So I think when it comes to the Rana George deck, you're going to find a lot of, I would say, traditional Middle Eastern, I would say Lebanese imagery. And I think that this is really important for her, how do I say, her mystique. Like her archetypal landscape, I think, draws a lot on these imagery, the culture, the environment, and we're going to go through the cards one by one. I believe she has a good quote that I've also quoted in the blog post about this, where she makes a reference to this mystique, this archetypal landscape that I think flows through her work. She says, I wanted my deck to feel, speak, and breathe Rana, while at the same time keeping the integrity of the old culture and the traditional form of Lenormand. I wanted it to be sensual with a pinch of Lebanese folklore, a dash of 1001 Nights, and a sprinkle of the Andalusian lore. This deck reflects my vision of Lebanon, focusing not on the modern cities and cosmopolitan lifestyle, but with a historic look back through the late 19th century and early 20th, from the later parts of the Ottoman, etc. So the landscape that flows through the illustration of the cards, I think, is really key for her. And I resonate a lot with this because I'm also Middle Eastern. I am Syrian, and I have Lebanese family as well. So I have a lot of connection with the area. And I've lived in Lebanon more than I ever lived in Syria. I was an expat my whole life, and so I was never really anchored there. I've traveled a lot, but I certainly understand and feel and resonate with the illustrations that are on this deck. Before we get to the card by card go through, let's have a look a little bit at the structure of the deck. So the back of the card is very beautiful. This is the hand of Fatma with the eye in the middle and an 8-pointed star, and there is this decorative, what do you call them, these elements. I think they're called arabesques sometime or something like that on the back of the book, on the back of the card. I really love the blue color of her deck. I think it is that balanced indigo navy kind of combination, and I also like that you can tell from the back of the card whether it is upright or reversed. In Lenormand, we read the cards upright, and so I feel that when the back of the card is also upright, it helps. When you shuffle in a messy pile, for example, putting the cards back upright, it's helpful to have a clear back that shows that the card is upright. And then on the front of the card, you have, like a few other decks that I've come across, you have this frame. It is like, I appreciate this frame because it's like you are pulled into the card. So it's like a gateway into the symbol of the card. all of her frames are the same across the decks. If you've seen my video on the Mystical Lenormand, the Mystical Lenormand has a different frame for each of the cards that aligns with the interior of the cards. In the Rana George deck, they are all the same frame, and they also draw on Lebanese architecture with that design that sort of peaks at the top. There's also, I feel, an Islamic geometry kind of feel to the surrounding frame here on the corner. And we have the card number at the top. Now I know that the gold can sort of shine and get in the way a little bit of the video. That's one reason why I don't use them all that much in my videos as regular readings, because the gold sort of shimmers and it can sometimes interfere with the light, or it's more like the light that interferes with it. But if you're able to see, we have the 2 corner 8-pointed stars, and there is the card number in each of them. On the top left, it's the card number in English or in Roman numerals, and in the top right, it's in Arabic numerals. Actually, in truth, the regular English numerals are actually Arabic numerals, and the Arabic numerals are actually Hindi. But it's just that they've been used commonly like this for a long time. That's what we call them. So we've got the card number at the top on both sides, left and right. And in the top middle, we have the pip. And there is this gold frame all around these elements. I really appreciate the size of the pips. I really like the pips in her deck. They are beautiful, they are well drawn, they have detail, and all the while they are very clear and crisp, and they stand out very clearly against the rest of the card. So I really appreciate the pips in her deck. They also have this beautiful 1001 night kind of character. And the illustrations are colorful. There's a wide range here in terms of the illustration, and we're going to go through these one by one. I have 2 additional piles in addition to the main pile here. What I wanted to split them out of the deck to talk through them. The George deck has 2 sets of man and woman cards. She has like the traditional 1001 Nights inspired characters, and she has another pair which is the more modern kind of characters here. So you can pick and choose which ones you use. You can also use 2 women, 2 men, which has become really popular with modern day decks. So it's really nice to have the option. For my part, I always use these 2 when I play with the Rana George deck, because I just love them so much more than the other 2. I like them better with the rest of the deck. And then the George deck also includes 4 additional cards, which brings the deck up to number 40. We'll go through these. There's only 4 of them, so we'll go through them briefly as well. It's not like the Ryan Edward Lenormand, which has all 52 cards. Rana adds only 4 cards to the deck. So I have these separately as well. So we'll look at them in just a bit. Let's go through the deck. I'm going to also probably talk through some of the imagery that I can pick out here comes from the Middle East, and maybe tell you a little bit about this as we go through. So starting in the order from 1 to 36, this is the Rider card. This to me looks like a postman on a horse. This is the Clover card. Pretty straightforward. This is the Ship, and this is a house. The house is pretty Lebanese looking. These are some very special, very beautiful homes that you'll see in Lebanon, in Mount Lebanon, and they draw on this traditional architecture that is really, really beautiful to see. This is a cedar. So the cedars of Lebanon are just about the most symbolic and the most powerful icon of Lebanon, both metaphorical and natural. In Mount Lebanon, in a part of Lebanon, there is a bunch of cedars. There are two main cedar groups in Lebanon, but there is one that are known as the Cedars of God. And if you were to visit that place, you would really see why they are called that. They are some of the oldest trees in the world. I believe they go back to 6,000 years. It is an absolutely priceless energy to experience, and I wish for you to have an opportunity to visit the Cedars of God. Obviously, the tree card in Rana's deck would have to be a cedar if she is, drawing on the landscape of Lebanon. This is the clouds card, and you see that there's a darker side and a lighter side. This is typical of many decks where the lighter side points to things brightening up and the darker side points to things darkening. So whatever cards fall on either side of the clouds can influence it in this way. This is the snake card. This looks to me like a viper snake associated with the more desert areas and such parts. This is the coffin card. This is the flowers. And this is the scythe and the whip. These are the birds, and there are two birds on the George deck. This is very typical, where the birds card is often represented as a pair of birds and also associated with pairs, number 2 and things like that. This is the child card, playing with marbles. I think that this is a game that a lot of people played when they were younger in the Middle East. I certainly know my mom used to play this game when they were kids in Lebanon. This is the fox. You can see that it is one of those old streets in Lebanon. I think I've seen a lot of these, especially in the mountainous areas and the smaller villages. This is the bear, and I think that's also another cedar in the back of the cards. This is the star card, and in here we have a representation of a very famous statue in Lebanon in a place called Harissa, and this is called Our Lady of Lebanon. This is a massive statue of Mary, Mother of Jesus, and it is a very powerful icon in Lebanon, and it is a spot that a lot of people do a pilgrimage to. I've also talked about it in the blog. You want to check this out. And what is beautiful about this card is the sky, starlit with lots of stars here. So it's not a single star on this card, but it is a starry sky that shines over Our Lady of Lebanon. So it's a very powerful symbol. It's very, very iconic, and it's definitely worth a visit if you're gonna visit the whole place. It's definitely worth your time. This is the stork and the dog, and this is a tower. Somehow it reminds me of the tower in Cairo, mainly because of the palm trees that I see in here. In Cairo, on Zamalek Island, there is the Tower of Cairo that is also a very popular tourist spot, and you can go up there and see all of Cairo. It is very, very impressive, and it just gives Cairo a very different feel when you're looking at it from the top. Now, I don't know for sure if this card here, if Rana George's card for the tower represents the Tower of Cairo, but it certainly reminds me of that. And this is a garden. This definitely reminds me of Andalusian gardens. I visited these when I was much younger in Spain. We've had an opportunity to travel there, and very Andalusian, very, very beautiful to see. And I really think that the garden draws on this kind of design. This is the mountain, a card for the George deck, and I think it can't be one of the mountains in Lebanon, probably Mount Sanin if it is that. I can't really tell from the mountain, but there is a very famous mount in Lebanon, and it might be that in her deck as well. And this is the roads card, and again we're seeing some landscapes here from Lebanese villages with Lebanese architecture. This is the mice, or the mouse card. There's 3 mice in several decks. I've seen 3 mice, and the idea is to represent multiplicity. You're going to find this little water fountain thing here. This is very commonly used in the area, in the region. Sometimes they're made out of glass, and sometimes they're made out of terracotta. When they're made out of terracotta, they have a way of keeping the water cool, and they also say that it purifies the water. So it's a very common thing that people just pick up and sort of drink out of. This is the heart card for the George deck. I find this a very unique design. It is actually a box of jewelry that contains the heart, and what's really nice is that there's the ring afterwards, and it wouldn't surprise me that you would keep the ring in the box. This is the book, and the book sits on one of those book holders that are very common in Islamic society. Actually, they'll place the Quran on one of these, and they might use it for other books as well. You find these all over the Arab world. They're very popular, and I think they come from the time, probably the Abbasid times, when people would sit on the floor, when it was popular to sit on the floor, and you would have your book holder for a major book or the Quran or some other important work that you're going through. So another very traditional kind of symbol here. This is the letter, and it is written in what looks to be Arabic. Of course, I can't really tell what it says except at the word at the top. It says Habibi. That is really cute. It means my love. And I guess if I looked a bit more closely, I could figure this out. I do think this seems to be my God somewhere. It says here in Arabic. It's a very lovely way of representing the letter in view of this whole landscape that bases this entire Rana George deck. These are the lilies on the lily card, and this is the sun. This is probably another landscape out of Lebanon. This is probably the columns in Baalbek and the old Roman columns that you'll find in that part. Very beautiful as well. I love the moon. This is one of my favorite cards of the deck. I love the crescent and the dark side of the moon as well. And I love the color. The blue of the sky is probably what I love more about the card, and how it contrasts with the crescent. And also notice that it is over water, and there is a reflection of the moon on the water by the sea. Lebanon has a lot of sea, a lot of seashores, so that too would align with the landscape. And the beautiful key. This is my favorite key of all card decks I've been through because it is so uniquely designed. I love the geometric design on the handle of the key and the beautiful tassel that comes through. And again, this color really, it really speaks to me, this indigo navy blue. Very beautiful and a very unique design. This is the fish card, and this is the anchor. So this is also another spot out of Lebanon. These rocks here are visible on a Beirut shore. They're called the Raushe rocks, and it's a very iconic pair of rocks that you see by the Beirut Sea. So that too is very clearly taken from that landscape. And finally, we have the cross. This looks like a regular cross with some beautiful design here. I like the color so much for this. I love the red. I think it works beautifully with the card for some reason. I don't know why. So this is the Rana George deck. Very, very beautiful cards and a beautiful landscape that sort of permeates her Lenormand approach. And like I said, there are two pairs of man and woman, and of course they have the same numbers, so it's 29 for the woman on either card and 28 for the man on either card, and you can sort of mix and match the ones you want and insert them in the deck. This is definitely my favorite pair. I think it works so much better with the deck. And then there are 4 additional cards, like we said, from 37 to 40. We will go through these briefly as we go through the guidebook. Of course, they are optional, and Rana says they are optional to include in your 36 card deck. So the guidebook is a lovely guidebook. It is a very helpful work with lots of practice readings. To me, what stands out in this guidebook is the practice readings. So it is card by card, right from the get-go, and she has a brief description of the cards. She also has quotes that she associates with the cards, which I think is great because she picks quotes that are really on point, and I think that carry a bit more wisdom that she associates with the cards, and I think the ones she picked are really on point. So for example, with the Rider, she has a couple of quotes. The first one is by Voltaire, and it says, "In the case of news, we should always wait for the sacrament of confirmation," which is very wise. And she has a second one by Sophocles, "None loves the messenger who brings bad news." As they say, don't shoot the messenger. So she has a description of the card, and then she gets into the examples. And you'll notice that Rana uses a lot of even-numbered single lines, and I think she must be one of the few readers who does. I personally stick with odd numbers for a single line, but she has 2, 4, 10, 8. I think that she just goes with her intuition every time she draws a line. I don't know for sure, but it certainly sounds like it. And you know, she just interprets the cards as they come. And she has also at the end of each card description a little bit of a background about the card. So very nice to understand the landscape a bit more and also how it affected her. And I think that is really key for her work. So she goes through each of the cards in order all the way to cards number 36. And then she talks about the 4 extra cards. Her examples are great. I really think that if you have her work, which I suggest you do, they are so on point, and it really tells me how, you know, the Lenormand essence is well captured by her practice. It's very straightforward the way she interprets, and this is exactly what Lenormand is. It's almost as like you asked, there's an answer. That's it. There's no need to beat around the bush. So for example, here's an example she uses with the house, and there are 3 cards. The question is, how will this experience unfold if I take it? She does offer a background. She says, Hamed is worried about taking a class for which he has no prior knowledge. So he's asking, how will this experience unfold if he goes for that class? So she draws the heart, child, and house for this question, and it is a very straightforward answer. She says, you are going to have a lot of fun in this class. I think that's mainly because of the child, and you will feel very comfortable like you belong. And that's where the house interpretation comes. So a very nice and straightforward way to interpret the cards. It really gets all the mystery, all the complications out of it, and that is really the cornerstone of Lenormand. A lot of us feel like Lenormand is so like in your face. I get that comment a lot. And then towards the end, she talks about the 4 extra cards. So the 4 extra cards start with card number 37, which is Spirit. And then she has card number 38, which is the Incense Burner. A very pretty design as well. Card 39, I believe, is the Bed. And card 40, I believe, is the Marketplace. So again, as you probably know, I am not a fan of additional cards. I feel that the market. I feel that it is possible to find a combination or another card to accommodate any of the extra cards. So you might want to go through the ones Rana has in here, but to give an example, the market, for example, I think is well associated with the garden. She says this has to do with the souk. So the souk of old, well, actually it's not really of old. We still find these souks just about everywhere in the Arab world, and probably in the Iran area, and all of these areas, they still have this idea of a souk. It's very fun to go through. There's so much stuff to find. And she says it encompasses all types of jobs and will take away the work aspect from the fox or any other work card if chosen to be included in the deck. She says the market represents labor, trade, commerce, and service, bankers, sales clerks, all of that. So you really feel it's the marketplace, you know, where people gather in a public environment to exchange goods and services. And I certainly see the energy that comes through the card because I'm familiar with these kinds of environments and I travel through them and I love them. But I also think that in terms of Lenormand, it's well captured by the garden. And additional cards nearby are going to give us more ideas about what is happening in that location. And the guidebook pretty much covers the cards. It doesn't expressly cover layouts. The layouts you will find in detail in her Essential Lenormand book. And I don't have a physical copy of the book, but I do have it handy on my phone. So I'm going to pop up a few images of the book from the ebook so that we talk through that a little bit. So it is a great book. It is a very popular book. It is one of the go-to references in Lenormand these days, which is great. And She has a lot of helpful introductory material. She has an approach to how to divide the cards in terms of themes. And of course, she goes into each of the cards. And like many of us Lenormand authors, we pick out a number of correspondences. She doesn't call them correspondences. I think she calls them contextual meanings. So for each card, she will have a future interpretation of the card, a woman or man interpretation of the cards, which points to personality, appearance, and things like that. She has a work correspondence, love, health, body, and spirit, which she combines into one, which I think is lovely. She has a money aspect and time or timing. She also has advice or action to take. Orientation, that is whether a card is positive, negative, or neutral. I don't call it an orientation, I call it an effect, but it's the same idea. And she also has objects and areas. And she also associates a personal story with each of the cards. So again, I feel that her personal experience and her archetypal landscape really goes through her work and goes through her approach with the deck, with everything in it. And I think that is really important to her. And she also has a section about what it looks like in the Grand Tableau. So very helpful. Her book is not a full 2-card combination handbook like My Master or let's say Regula Fichte's Mystical Lenormand, but she does offer a number of combinations, and these are also examples. So of course she covers every single card in abundance across all of these different contexts, and she also has an abundant section for layouts, and I really encourage you to have a look through and to study and practice the different layouts that she offers. She has lots of them. She has the astrological clock. She doesn't call it a clock, but I use it for the 12 months and she uses it for the houses of the zodiac, which is great. And I also have additional techniques that combine both. Maybe I'll talk through them another day. So I'm just backing up here to the beginning of her layouts. She has really a bunch of them. And her examples are great, like I've mentioned in the guidebook. You certainly want to go through those. She also has, so her layouts include combination drills. I believe these are practice exercises of combining the cards, and then an answer line. So I think the answer line for her is pretty flexible. Like you see in the guidebook, she has 2, 4, 10, 6, 7. It really doesn't sound like she sticks with a certain number. I think it sounds like she goes with her intuition. She addresses the box spread, which is the 9-card portrait, and a few others, including the astrological spread that I just mentioned, as well as the Grand Tableau. And I encourage you to look at her approach of the Grand Tableau. She has many of the main techniques that many authors use, but she also has her own take on some things. So it's always worth exploring and, just getting a sense of how other people do things, so that way you can gather the techniques that you enjoy the most and incorporate them as part of your practice. Overall, this is a beautiful deck. I definitely think this should be part of your library and part of your deck collection. The guidebook and the main book are more or less essentials. I think they really capture the practice succinctly, and it's a really great focus on the cornerstone of what it means to practice Lenormand. So, like I said, I do have a much longer blog post about the George deck and her work, so be sure to have a look at that. I'm also going to link the deck and her work in case you want to get a copy, which I encourage you to. And as always, if you have any questions or thoughts or comments about this, by all means, leave them in the comments, or send me an email if you like, reach out, and I will find a way to answer them. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Again, I'm looking forward to your feedback. And until our next video together, as always, thank you so much for watching, and take very good care of yourself.